now, we jump to our 8th storyline, where our narrator makes a startling confession. I was reincarnated as a sword. For hundreds of years, it was passed from master to master, a legendary blade that forged mere mortals into historical heroes. But then it met someone different, not a master, but a true comrade. His name was Leon Burke, a boy from a nameless village with an unshakable will, who wielded the sword against werewolves and the undead. He cut a bloody path through hordes of monsters, and together they roamed the world. Their bond was so strong they achieved feats no one else could ever hope to match. But even legends face their limit. In a brutal, world-shaking battle, Leon Burke is pushed past his breaking point and is left kneeling in the frozen wastes, battered and broken. Their final foe was a colossal dragon, a creature of pure, overwhelming malice. Its roar shook the very mountains. But even facing impossible odds, Leon Burke's spirit refused to break. The beast unleashed a torrent of destructive energy, but the warrior met the cataclysmic blast head-on, his own power erupting in defiance. With a grin that stared down death itself, he spoke to his partner. "Let's go, my friend." He poured every last ounce of his strength into one final charge. Man and sword clashed against the beast in a battle of wills. And finally, soaring through the air, they went for the decisive blow. The sword recalls their greatest victory, the day they defeated the White Dragon of the Frost Mountains. After their legendary battles, my comrade Leon Burke became the ruler of a kingdom. And I, the sword, became a symbol of that legend, and was passed down through Leon Burke's bloodline, with his final wish that I protect his descendants. But after a long slumber, the sword is awakened by a commotion. It's being shaken, and it is not happy about it. An arrogant young prince declares himself the new master of the legendary blade. His guards panic, pleading with him to return the sacred sword. A prince? But the spoiled brat refuses, and the sword can only think one thing. This pig? It can't believe this is what has become of its master's lineage. To be sure, the sword uses its unique ability, authority, judgment, to assess its new master. And the results are pathetic. The prince, Adrian Leon Burke, has zero aptitude and a list of traits that reads like a character sheet for a pig. Adrian can barely lift the legendary blade, already dreaming of how the king and nobles will finally have to acknowledge him. He seethes. "They won't be able to ignore me anymore." The sword is utterly unimpressed, thinking what a ridiculous man this is. Adrian screams for the great dragon slayer to lend him its strength, but the sword internally scoffs. "Why would I ever lend power to a guy like you?" He bellows the sword's true name, Gruhorn. He begins swinging the blade wildly, completely out of control as his terrified guards beg him to stop. But the spoiled prince turns on them, threatening to kill them for daring to give him orders. "Once I get my hands on Gruhorn's power," he rages, "trash like you will be nothing." But his weak body can't handle the legendary weapon's weight, and he stumbles forward. He loses his balance completely, and to the horror of his attendants, he falls directly onto the blade. A maid gasps in shock. The prince lies in a pool of his own blood as the guards panic, screaming for the royal physician. But from Gruhorn's perspective, something is very wrong. It realizes, wait, the one who got stabbed by this scoundrel was me? Its vision blurs, and for the first time in its existence, the legendary sword feels itself about to faint. As it fades, Gruhorn reflects on the grim future the kingdom faced. If Prince Adrian succeeded the throne, there was no hope. He had no talent, only top-tier arrogance and greed. He was a stupid, lazy, and cruel pig. That was the true nature of the first prince, Adrian Leon Burke. He was a dark cloud over the kingdom. But after this accident left him on the border of death, a strange rumor began to spread. The rumor spreads through the castle staff, with maids whispering about Prince Adrian's sudden change. He hasn't been flipping tables or hanging out with his usual gang of delinquents. But their concern is just a facade for mockery. They sneer that the notorious prince must finally feel some shame, or more likely, he's just scared and will be back to his old self soon enough. However, the person in question, Prince Adrian, has no interest in such rumors. He's dealing with a much bigger problem. Because the soul inside this body isn't Adrian's, it's Gruhorn, the legendary sword, who realizes in horror, to think I killed my comrade's descendant and stole his body. His existential crisis is interrupted when a maid bursts in, announcing that His Majesty the King has arrived. But Gruhorn, still thinking like a sword, scoffs, The man didn't even visit when I was dying. Why now? The maid panics, trying to shush him as a stern, imposing figure enters the room. The man, an older warrior with white hair, looks down at the prince. I heard you came back from the dead, he says coldly, but it seems that temper of yours is exactly the same. He dismisses the maid, leaving him alone with the boy slumped in the chair. Gruhorn looks up, completely bewildered, thinking, who is this? The man continues, we still have the bond of master and student, yet you won't even pretend to know me now? Gruhorn's face twists in disgust. Is he this pig's teacher? He thinks, his internal contempt completely at odds with the confused maid calling out to him. Thinking fast, Gruhorn feigns amnesia. My memory is a mess, don't tell me? Just then, a new, far more imposing figure arrives, announced by the guards. His Majesty the King has arrived. Gruhorn internally scoffs. Then he must be this scoundrel's father. But as he looks closer, he's genuinely surprised. Oh, he's better than I thought. He'd assumed that after so many generations, the lion's blood had diluted into dog's blood. But the king's powerful presence proves him wrong. The king glares down at his son. It seems surviving an encounter with death does not change a person. Adrian's teacher quickly steps in, using Gruhorn's excuse. Your Majesty, I've just heard his memory is not intact. The court erupts in panic, demanding the royal physician be summoned immediately. And so, Gruhorn is forced to play patient as the physician examines him. The old doctor looks perplexed. I can find no abnormalities whatsoever in His Highness's body. However, he concludes, it's possible this is a temporary condition caused by mental shock. Gruhorn freezes, wondering if the king has seen through his ruse. The king scoffs. How truly convenient. Does this mean, he sneers, that everything you have done until now never happened? The king lectures him, saying that people can learn from their mistakes and grow. But you, he roars, his face twisting with rage, have forgotten all of that. He looms over the prince, accusing him of taking no steps forward from his past errors. And you will not be able to move forward in the future either. A guard tries to calm the furious monarch, but Gruhorn knows he's in deep trouble. Internally, he curses his luck. Forget being treated like a prince, he thinks. I won't even be treated like a human. He grits his teeth in frustration, wondering what on earth the original Adrian did to be so despised. Suddenly, a voice calls out a name. Ian! Gruhorn whips his head around in shock. A woman wearing a crown rushes in, smothering Gruhorn in a bone-crushing hug and declaring she heard everything. As he struggles for air, she dismisses his past as trivial if he can't even remember it. She cups his chubby cheeks, lamenting how his beautiful face has wasted away, much to Gruhorn's internal confusion. But with a gentle smile, she says she's just happy that he's opened his eyes. She warns him to never again touch dangerous objects like the sword. As she frets, Gruhorn's guilt resurfaces. I'm sorry, he thinks, but your son is already dead. Later that night, the sheer weight of his new reality feels incredibly burdensome. The queen finally leaves, telling him to rest. Gruhorn slumps in his chair, completely drained. He lets out a single weary sigh. The promise he made to his old comrade echoes in his mind. He was meant to protect Leon Burke's descendants, but instead, he feels he has become one's killer. But his despair quickly hardens into resolve. What's done is done, he thinks. I'll just have to live well enough for the both of us. As a legendary sword, he spent his entire existence cleaning up after others. This new body may be fat and talentless, but that doesn't matter. He just needs to build his power again. With a smirk, he remembers his past. Do you know how many heroes I've raised? His first step is clear. He needs to forge a mana heart. He sits and begins to gather the ambient mana, but the energy swirls uncontrollably before fizzling out. He breaks out in a cold sweat. The mana dispersed. This pathetic body can't handle it. But Gruhorn is no stranger to adversity. He grits his teeth and tries again and again. With a guttural roar, he pours every ounce of his will into the attempt. He forces the mana to bend to his command once more. But again, the energy violently rejects him, slamming him to the floor. Gasping for air, he can't believe it. What the hell kind of body is this? He laments that in his original form, he could have easily forced this weak constitution into submission. Just then, his attendant maid enters the room. She presents a restorative medicine sent by the queen, explaining that it will aid his recovery. She gently pleads with him to consider his mother's feelings. The maid nervously recalls the last time she tried this, when the spoiled prince threw the bowl right at her head. But as Gruhorn stares at the steaming cup, his eyes widen in shock at what he sees within it. This medicine, it contains mana. Without a word, he snatches the cup from the tray and downs the entire thing in one gulp. The maid is left speechless. He slams the empty bowl down and coldly tells her to leave. As she scurries away, Gruhorn prepares to try again. He immediately begins channeling the new energy, attempting to forge the mana heart once more. He realizes the medicine is working. But the amount of mana is still far too small, creating a fragile core that will dissipate within a day. Realizing he needs more, he calls out to the terrified maid just as she's about to leave. "Do you have any more of that?" he demands, his voice cold and urgent. A few days later, having consumed all the mana-infused medicine he could get his hands on, he grins with wicked anticipation. "Finally, I can create a mana heart," he declares, the power surging around him. He's done this countless times before, a process so familiar he could do it with his eyes closed. But he's cut short by a wave of excruciating pain. His insides feel like they're on fire, his chest about to explode. And then he remembers. Forging a mana heart was always an agonizing process. He grits his teeth, fighting to stay conscious through the torment. He knows that if he passes out, he'll suffer a catastrophic mana backflow. He has to focus! He seizes the wild clump of energy, reminding himself to go slowly, guiding it carefully along the path to his heart. He lets the new heart permeate his being, taking form within him. The chaotic energy finally begins to settle. And just like that, it's done. This time it's not a mana heart he's forged for someone else. It's a mana heart for him and him alone. He did it, it's complete. He jumps to his feet, celebrating his new power, but his cheer is cut short. Huh? A system window pops up confirming his success, but Gruhorn recognizes this interface. Is this a status window? It's identical to the messages he used to send his masters when he was a sword. Why is it appearing for him now? Before he can process it, a new message appears, restoring connection to the origin. Suddenly, he's bombarded with notifications. The connection is unstable. Most of his authorities are locked, but a few are available for limited use, like the power of judgment. He also gains limited access to third eye and third ear, which let him see and hear better. Authority, he thinks to himself, looking out the window to test his new senses. And it's true. The leaves on the trees are sharper, more defined than ever before. He then focuses on his hearing. And he can clearly hear the maids gossiping outside his room, amazed that the prince hasn't thrown a tantrum yet. But as he listens in, a sudden sharp jolt hits him. A system window flashes before his eyes. His internal mana has been completely depleted, and his authorities are being forcibly terminated. He stumbles back, clutching his head. "So this is what extremely limited meant," he groans. He remembers his time as a sword, when he could sense everything in all directions without a single blind spot. But that absolute perception is gone now. With his pathetic new mana pool, all he can do is eavesdrop a little or see things slightly better. But a wicked grin spreads across his face. He knows things will change once he expands his mana. For now, though, a more pressing human need arises. He's hungry. A maid promises to bring food immediately, and Gruhorn decides his first priority is adapting to this new body. Suddenly the queen appears, her face beaming with admiration. She pinches his cheeks, overjoyed that he finished all his medicine and is finally learning to treasure his own body. But their moment is cut short by a looming shadow as the king enters the room. The king presents a stern, scarred man asking if Adrian recognizes him. Gruhorn, maintaining his ruse, simply says no. The queen, convinced of his amnesia, turns to the man and reveals he is her brother, pleading for him to help his nephew. Gruhorn internally notes that this man is his new uncle, as the queen continues to press him. But the uncle scoffs, callously remarking that Adrian's past wasn't worth remembering anyway, a sentiment Gruhorn immediately picks up on. The uncle then lays down his terms. The only help he's willing to offer is to whip this pathetic, flabby body into shape. He makes it clear there will be no special treatment, a condition the queen gratefully accepts. And with that, the deal is struck. The very next moment, the uncle kicks Adrian clean across the training grounds. Looming over him, the uncle lays out the brutal new rules. Every single action, even breathing, now requires his permission. The life of a prince is officially over. With a condescending smirk, the uncle dangles a pathetic reward. If Adrian tries hard enough, He might teach him a scrap of the family's swordsmanship. Gruhorn is internally incandescent with rage. This man dares offer to teach swordsmanship to him, the legendary blade who trained the founding king? The uncle mistakes his trembling fury for simple, powerless resentment. But Gruhorn rises, his face shadowed with resolve. He looks his uncle in the eye and proposes a bet. Within half a year, he declares, I will make you acknowledge me. If he fails, he'll be his uncle's dog. But if he succeeds, the uncle must grant him a single wish. Intrigued by this sudden spine, the uncle agrees, figuring it'll at least be entertaining to watch him try. Gruhorn may have talked a big game, but the crushing reality of Adrian's pathetic, stamina-less body immediately sets in. Realizing physical training alone won't cut it, Gruhorn decides to cheat, using mana to burn the fat off his body. The sudden surge of energy doesn't go unnoticed. In a flash, the uncle grabs him, his hand crackling with power. He roars in disbelief. Did you actually create a mana heart? Gruhorn just gives him a smug little grin. He casually confirms it, then taunts his uncle, asking if he's already regretting their bet. But the uncle isn't impressed. He's furious. He demands to know where a pampered prince learned such a technique, seething that Adrian doesn't even realize his mistake. Gruhorn is genuinely confused. Because a mana heart, his uncle explains, is a crude, inefficient technique used only by low-level mercenaries. For the legendary sword Gruhorn, this is a world-shattering revelation. He realizes it truly is the end of an era. The uncle hammers the point home, sneering that a mana heart is a crude technique for low-level grunts. Gruhorn stammers in disbelief, but his uncle decides showing is better than telling. Watch closely, he commands, gathering a brilliant blue energy in his hand. Gruhorn's eyes widen as he sees the mana form not a core, but a ring. The uncle unleashes a stable, powerful torrent of energy. He explains that these mana chains are not only more stable, but have the power to shatter the sword energy of a mana heart. He even gives a history lesson, explaining that an entire family who clung to the old ways fell into ruin 100 years ago. Nobody uses mana hearts anymore. Humbled, Gruhorn hits the books, studying mana chain basic theory, and grimly accepting how much the times have changed. He learns that while swordsmen now use chains, mages have evolved to use circles. His studies reveal that knights now weave these chains to gather mana, with their power level determined by the number of chains they can create. The stages of power are clearly defined: single, double, triple, quad, and the legendary pentachain. Gruhorn slams the book shut, begrudgingly admitting that the theory isn't completely nonsensical garbage. But as he scans the authors, one name catches his eye: Ernest Altringen. The name triggers a memory from a very long time ago, when a voice challenged him in his original sword form. A hooded challenger named Ernest Altringen appeared, declaring he had come to see who was more worthy of the title Sword Saint. Back in the present, a smirk plays on Gruhorn's lips. No wonder the name sounded familiar. He chuckles to himself, wondering whatever happened to that ambitious upstart. The next day, it's time for practical application as Gruhorn begins his physical training. His uncle's voice cuts through the morning air, asking if he actually read the book. You must have grasped the situation by now, he sneers. Just how foolish a choice you have made. But Gruhorn just smirks. Well, I don't feel like I made a mistake in the slightest. The uncle's patience wears thin. Are you in denial, or have you still not grasped the situation? A blue flame ignites in Gruhorn's hand. Not all mana hearts are the same, you see. His entire body erupts in a brilliant blue aura as he asks, have you ever heard of a difference in class? The uncle is taken aback. I wondered what nonsense you were spouting. He scoffs, comparing Gruhorn to delusional mercenaries who think they're ancient heroes. Do you know what happened to all of them? They all fell, he declares, unable to surpass even 2 rings. The challenge is thrown down. If you are different from them, try defeating a double chain knight. Then I will become your guardian, the uncle says with a grim smile, as your mother wishes. Gruhorn smirks, wondering if this is really a good thing for him. The air in the training yard grows heavy with tension. Taking a heavy step forward, the uncle's voice drops. Did you just question my qualifications as a guardian? A terrifying teal aura explodes around him. I am a Count of the Kingdom and the commander of the Northern Army, master of the Black Lancers, and one of the 5 silver lions who serve His Majesty. The ground shatters under the sheer pressure of his mana as he reveals he is one who has woven 4 rings. A quad chain knight. "Vale Balorhard!" he roars. "That is the name of the man who may stand behind you." Gruhorn is blasted back by the immense power as Vale demands, "Is that sufficient qualification?" But just as his blade descends, two royal knights intercept the blow, demanding that Count Balorhard stand down. Vale simply smirks, unfazed by the interruption. But Gruhorn, with a defiant grin, accepts the challenge, shouting for his uncle not to dare go back on his word. A short while later, the first day of training ends with Gruhorn utterly defeated and gasping on the floor. He lurches up in a panic, the grim reality setting in. He nearly died. Vale looms over him, mocking his foolish grit and sneering that he'd be lucky to beat a single chain knight, let alone a double. Fuming, Gruhorn stumbles away from the training grounds, cursing that devilish bastard. He finally reaches his room, only to find someone waiting for him inside. It's the royal physician, who seems pleasantly surprised that the prince with amnesia still remembers him. Gruhorn demands to know why he's here, and the physician explains the queen ordered him to use healing magic. But as the physician prepares to cast the spell, Gruhorn panics. He physically shoves the old man out of his room, screaming that he doesn't need it. Healing magic would make all the agonizing training he just endured completely worthless. But his troubles are far from over, as a voice calls out from the doorway. A smug-looking young man in a red coat enters the room. Later at dinner, Gruhorn eyes the newcomer warily as he tastes his soup. Something about this guy just feels off. A knight leans in to whisper that the guest is His Highness, the Third Prince. The Third Prince remarks that he heard about Adrian's accident, adding with a smirk, "What a shame." Unimpressed, Gruhorn cuts straight to the point. "So what is it you want to say? Did you just come to pick a fight?" The Third Prince's eyes flash with malice. "Says the fool who stuck a sword into his own body." He leans back, a smug look on his face. "Besides, I heard an interesting piece of news, you see." This gets Gruhorn's attention. The prince reveals he knows about the bet with Count Balorhard, the one about dueling a double-chain knight. A wicked smile spreads across his face. "About that?" He lunges forward, getting right in Gruhorn's personal space. "How would you like me as your opponent?" The Third Prince is gone, leaving Gruhorn sitting in stunned silence. He seethes internally. What the hell was that guy just now? Why are Leonberg's descendants all like this? The knight behind him explains that His Highness, Third Prince Jillian, has been a renowned prodigy since childhood. In fact, he became a double-chain knight at the age of 14, a true genius with mana chains. Just as Gruhorn is processing this new threat, a nervous maid interrupts. She's trembling under the weight of two massive stacks of letters, all for him. He takes one, confused. Letters? Why would anyone who ignored this body before suddenly... He quickly realizes they're all duel requests from knights and swordsmen offering to be his sparring partner. The news of his bet has spread, and every person who ever held a grudge against the arrogant prince sees this as a golden opportunity to legally beat him to a pulp. But instead of fear, a wicked grin spreads across Gruhorn's face. Looks like I've become an easy target. He grabs a handful of the letters and calls out to the startled maid. With a glint in his eye, he gives a simple order. Write down all their names. The next day, on the training grounds, a wooden sword clatters onto the stone floor. His Uncle Vale stands over him, his voice like ice. Pick up the sword. You need to know at least a shred of swordsmanship for the bet to stand, Vale says coldly. I don't want excuses that you lost because you weren't taught the basics. Gruhorn struggles to pick up his sword, muttering about his uncle's awful personality. But as he tries to stand, a wave of agony shoots through him. My muscle pain! He cries out, before suddenly stopping. Vale grabs his shoulder, a hint of confusion in his eyes. Did you not receive healing magic? He leans in, his gaze sharp. If you're a knight, you should know well. Healing magic only restores muscles to their original state, he explains. It doesn't help them grow. The realization hits Gruhorn. Right. Vale turns away, dismissing the subject. Well, fine. That wasn't what I intended to talk about anyway. He raises his own sword, his voice dropping to a serious tone. I don't plan on showing this multiple times, so watch closely. A powerful teal aura explodes around him as he demonstrates the foundational technique. The kingdom's training sword. He unleashes a flurry of precise, powerful strikes, his blade a blur of teal energy. He moves with a speed and grace that defies belief. every motion a masterclass in swordsmanship. This is the foundation upon which all knights of the kingdom are built. With a final decisive downward slash, the basic technique sends a shockwave cracking through the stone floor. Gruhorn is utterly speechless. He stammers. Just now, did you say that's the sword-style knights learn to build their foundation? Vale scoffs. It may lack sharpness since it's a training sword, but it is faithful to the basics. Considering your talent, it might even be too much for you. But Gruhorn isn't insulted, he's ecstatic. No matter how much time has passed, the great dragon slayer swordsmanship that beheaded the mad dragon is now treated as nothing more than a trivial training technique. Vale tells him that mastering the basics won't be enough to win the bet, suggesting he find a new teacher, but Gruhorn cuts him off. There is no need. I will not learn any other swordsmanship, he declares, because this alone is enough. Vale seems taken aback for a moment, then simply says, do as you please. With renewed purpose, Gruhorn throws himself back into his training. As he swings the heavy blade, a grim realization dawns on him. The fact that the legendary Dragon Slayer style is now considered basic is, he hates to admit, a natural evolution. He understands now. The current swordsmanship lacks the most crucial component, the will to slay dragons. Those who abandoned the mana heart and forgot how to imbue their very will into the blade could never recognize the true value of the Dragon Slayer style. But his swing is clumsy and weak. Vale stops him mid-motion. Power doesn't go into the sword just because you tense your arms, he scolds. Have you already forgotten what I showed you? He smacks Gruhorn's gut with the training sword, reminding him to focus his power in the belly. And then the legs. You must channel strength correctly through your whole body to wield the sword, Vale explains. Right. He knows that in his current weak body, he's just clumsily mimicking a fake Dragon Slayer style. But he will prove that the true style isn't some old junk to be thrown away like worn-out shoes. And so 1 day, 2 days, 3 days pass. A week passes in a blur of relentless training. And then a month with Gruhorn dedicating every moment to honing his new body and channeling his mana. Finally, his arduous efforts bear fruit. System notifications confirm his transformation. His morbid obesity is reduced, his metabolism is boosted, and the crippling clumsy trait has vanished entirely. But the most crucial change comes from his mana, which has fundamentally altered his constitution. The mana sensitivity disorder is gone, replaced by a new, powerful sensitivity, allowing him to swing his sword more naturally than ever before. Every day he pushes himself, becoming stronger than the day before. He's completely lost in the zone, ignoring a voice telling him to stop, striving for a swing more perfect than the last. His training partner screams in frustration, his own wooden sword shattered. Did you not hear me tell you to stop? The sheer force of Gruhorn's swing completely obliterated the knight's blade. Drenched in the pouring rain, Gruhorn stands over his defeated partner, his uncle Vale Balorhard watching from the background. His hand is bleeding, raw from the force of his own power. He finally snaps out of his trance, noticing his uncle's presence. Uncle? But Vale's arrival doesn't stop him. He turns his relentless assault on a training dummy, smashing it to splinters with pure, focused power. The world comes rushing back. Vale grabs him, absolutely furious. You stupid fool, training on a day like this? If that were a real sword, you wouldn't have escaped unscathed. Gruhorn looks at his own trembling, bloodied hands, realizing just how far he pushed himself. But his reckless dedication pays off. A system notification announces he's awakened from his extreme concentration and gained a new trait, hyper-focus. A slow, triumphant laugh escapes his lips. All the pain was worth it. He even jokes that if he tries to focus like that again, he might just get struck by lightning. As a knight rushes to his side in a panic, Gruhorn's body finally gives out. For a moment, the fury on Vale's face softens into something else. Concern. He catches the boy as he collapses, muttering, "Foolish brat."